Hello, BookTube. Once again, I want to apologize for missing Monday completely. Yesterday was just a dud, just a complete dud of a day. It was dark, it was drizzly. There was no mail. It was a holiday, so there wasn't even the enlivenment of that. My little puppy is full of energy, but she hates the rain. She will not go outside if it's raining, or even if it wasn't really raining all day. Instead, there was just sort of water moving around in the air. So the ground was damp, but there was no pitter-patter of rainfall. And even that was the minute that she got a sense of that in the air, she wanted to turn around and come back inside. So she was cooped up in here. I was cooped up in here. I had tedious tail-chasing writing work to do, and it just... By afternoon, when the thought usually comes to my mind, I should turn on the camera and visit with everybody, by that point, all I wanted to do was just pull the mental covers over my head and read. Just lose myself in reading. And I have learned in my brief tenure on BookTube here, I have learned that making videos when you feel that way doesn't produce good videos. So I always want to come to this enjoying it. So I just skipped the day. I just skipped everything. I skipped a lot. Not just BookTube, but a lot. But I'm back now, and I want to show you a few books that I will be reading today. Now, you might think that's a bit of a claim, a few books in one day, but these are all small books that I plan on just flying right through. And I wanted to show them to you. One of them, I think a couple of them are rereads. The first one is definitely a reread, and it is lovely. Look at this. The paperback of the Vanity Fair Diaries by Tina Brown. With a perfect cover. Why the original hardcover did not have this cover, I have no idea. That, Tina Brown in all her glory, in the heyday of her reign at the New Yorker, at Vanity Fair, getting out of a limo, probably for some extremely photographed evening event. And this has everybody from her time at Vanity Fair. This is just one anecdote after another. And it's tremendously good. It's the snapshot of a time at Vanity Fair, of an era at Vanity Fair. And it is all the parties that you and I were not invited to. It's all the gossip that we only heard third or fourth hand in Spy magazine or whatever. Only all in one book. I loved it when I read it the first time. I can't wait to reread it. Especially now, this is one of those rare examples where I prefer the paperback. I'm going to look around. If I still have the hardcover, I'm going to get rid of it, because I prefer not just the format, but I prefer the look of it. This is what it should have looked like to start with. Racy rather than stately. Then the next one we've seen on this channel before. I read it and I absolutely loved it. I'm going to love reading it again, but it's an hour's read. Like Vanity Fair Diaries, it's an hour's read. And that's this, Something Rotten. A fresh look at roadkill. This is by Heather L. Montgomery, and it is, for those of you who might be thinking that it's dealing in metaphor, no, it's dealing in roadkill. It's all about roadkill. What it is, how you identify what it was, what you do with it, what grows in it, what lives off it, how to prepare it for food. It's the whole story of roadkill, of animals killed on the road by automobiles. And I loved it. I loved it, and I'm sure that I'm going to love it a second time. Then this next one is an October release. It's a release in a lovely paperback, décollage, French flaps, embossed cover. I have the advance copy, and I've heard a lot of talk about it, but I until now I have only dipped into it a bit here and there. It's a short story collection, so it invites dipping. But today I will be reading the whole thing. And it is this. It is Friday Black by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. I believe a debut collection of short stories. Yes, this is the author's first book. And it's, well, let me read you about it. It's a collection of short stories. From the start of this extraordinary debut, the author will grab you, haunt you, engage you, and invigorate you. By placing ordinary characters in extraordinary circumstances, the author reveals the violence, injustice, and painful absurdities that black men and women contend with every day in this country. These stories explore urgent instances of racism and cultural unrest and the ways we fight for humanity in an unforgiving world. And it's a lovely thing. I mean, if you could see, that's a an animal on the cover there, and it's embossed as a French flap with the animal on the inside as well. And you all know that I love debut works. I'm all on their side. I step back and look with pure excitement at the introduction of a new voice in the literary world, because we need as many voices as possible. My one worry about this book, and it's a theoretical worry, because the little dip in that I did was very good and did not show this worry. My one worry in this book is that it will be in fiction a lot like a lot of the nonfiction that it sounds like that I have read in 2018, which is that it will end up not being an examination of the absurd and vicious racism that black people face in America every day, but rather it will be a tout-court blanket condemnation of all white people as racist. So, in addition to the narrative ability and storytelling and trusting the audience and vocabulary and wording and the power of the drama, I will also be looking to, I admit, I will also be looking to see in this collection of stories if there are any white people who aren't racist. And if I get to the end of the book and there aren't any white people who aren't racist, I'm going to consider that a major flaw. In the same way that 50 years ago, if I had read a debut short story collection by a young white author, and all the black characters in all of the stories were step-and-fetch-it blackface stereotypes, I would finish that book and be outraged at the bigotry on display. There is no difference between those two, no matter what some people might say in 2018 about how it's impossible to be racist towards white people. If every white person, in every context, in every standing, in every social strata, in every situation in these stories, is just accepted as written as racist towards black people, then this is a simplistic book. And the one taste that I gave myself of it didn't seem simplistic. So I'm really hoping that does not happen. I'm really hoping that. What I want to avoid here is two things. I want to avoid having every white character be a racist. And I also want to avoid having a situation where there's one or two white characters who aren't racist, but they're saints. Implying that if you're not a saint and you're white, then you're a racist. I don't need a 20-something author to be lecturing me like that in his fiction. And I'm hoping that I don't find it, because I want to champion this book, basically. Not this book particularly, but I want to champion new works. I always want to champion debut fiction. So I will report back. I haven't, the one exposure that I gave myself to it was very encouraging. So, and then the next book, also an hour's read, is Stephen King. It's Elevation by Stephen King. Tiny little thing. This is the book, his next book after The Outsider, which was 6 times its size, and is the story of a man in Castle Rock, Maine, who realizes one day that he is getting lighter. He's losing weight, but he's not getting any thinner. He seems to be possessing less and less mass with every day. And as in most Stephen King, this is a short story, basically. And in most Stephen King short stories, that is a strong suit of this author. He creates a fantastic situation and then progresses it quickly so that everybody, the main character, and everybody else has to adapt quickly. And that's usually very good. There's usually a high entertainment ratio involved in that until he inevitably flubs the ending. And I don't know. We shall see. The fact that it's set in Castle Rock, Maine gives me the willies, because one of the things that Stephen King does as an author that I absolutely detest is to buy into his own cult of personality as an author. That Stephen King feller who writes them books full of obscenities is a well-known figure to the Castle Rock readers. And that drives me crazy. That drives me absolutely crazy. For an author who in 2070 will be largely forgotten, that shows an enormous amount of chutzpah. But that's one thing that worries me about this, is that since it's a short story set in Castle Rock, it might do that. A whole bunch of posturing on the part of the writer. Another thing, another trait that Stephen King has, and that he has tended to show more with every subsequent book, is a tendency to have his characters talk in writer terms. Have his characters talk as if they were characters in a book. For instance, a normal character in working class small town Maine will never use the word vermilion under any circumstances. Vermilion. Vermilion. Describing a sunset or something. They will never use it under any circumstances. It is simply impossible. It is as impossible as a young man growing up in Castle Rock, going to the public school, and one day breaking out into Bantu. It's not possible. It is just a writer not giving a crap. And that drives me nuts, even if you are Stephen King, even if you own the entire state of Maine, even if you make $150 million a year on your books, largely on the backs of mid-list authors whose advances you have pauperized because you demand that. But one way or another, no matter who you are, you don't have the right to do that sort of thing. And the third thing that bugs me about Stephen King short stories and his novels, that just Stephen King in general, and I already said it, is that he has, like so many writers today, he has absolutely no idea of how to end a story. I firmly believe that the only thing he thinks about is the opening gimmick. And then he just follows it on the word processor until he hits a word count or until he decides that he's had enough or whatever, and then just punts the ending. And we shall see. We shall see with this what it is. Even when his writing, his small town Maine writing is very good, like for instance his teleplay Storm of the Century, there will still be a flubbed ending, an absolutely absurd ending. And we'll see if it happens with this book. It'll take me 45 minutes to read, so I'll know soon enough. If you have a main character who is weighing less and less with every day, the conclusion, the ending of the book that I could think would be just about the dumbest and therefore maybe the most predictable ending that a writer like Stephen King could give it would be that we never learn why, and that the end of the book is that the character simply floats away. the equivalent of just punting at the end. I've seen him do that on so many books that I know to expect it with this one. I could be pleasantly surprised. If so, I will let you know. Then this next one is a reprint. It is, to put it mildly, a surprise to me. I was not expecting this reprint. It's King Kong. Look at that cover. Isn't that awesome? The teeth are the title. Isn't that incredible? Actually, I should tell you who it is. The cover is done by Ollie Moss. Ollymooss. I'll try and find Ollie Moss's homepage and leave a link to it, because that is brilliant. This is a Modern Library, just a reprint. I guess there's going to be a Broadway musical of King Kong. And this is the novelization that was banged out on a mechanical typewriter at breakneck speed in order to soften the ground for the blockbuster movie. So, in other words, hack work of the very first water. And so I'm really hoping, I don't know anything about this edition, but I'm really hoping that the introduction does not try to make the novel King Kong into any kind of high art or symbolism or whatever. I doubt it. I don't think anyone could do that. But I have seen people try to do that, even with the Pellucidar novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs. If you can do it with them, you can do it with anything. So, we shall see. One way or another, I have not read, look at that, that is awesome. I have not read King Kong in probably 50 years. But it's tiny. So again, we're talking, in each one of these cases, we're talking an hour. So, you know, as a Tuesday, considering that I'm going to spend 15 hours reading today, this is not the whole of it by any means. And then the next thing, beautiful. Not going to take very long to do, although it has more text. But this is, look at this. End of the Megafauna. This is Ross McPhee, and it is illustrated by Peter Shooten, and the illustrations are incredible. Look at that thing. Let me get you another one here. The illustrations are all in color, unlike my advanced copy. There's plenty of black and white, and there are plenty of photographs, too, of the stuff that... Yeah, look at that. Look at that thing. I've had the advanced copy here forever, and I have dipped into it again. I have read the captions for the pictures, sort of toured around inside it, but I haven't sat down and read it as a book. That's what I'll be doing today, just sitting down and reading this as a book. This will have all the, look at that. They're fighting over a dead bison. Look at the size of them. One of them's a proto-bear, one of them's a saber-toothed tiger, and they're fighting over a bison on the plains of America. And I am just a sucker for prehistoric Pleistocene life, that sort of thing. I'm just a sucker for it. I love books like this. So I'm confident that I will enjoy this. The only thing that I will not enjoy if this book follows the pattern of many books like it that I have read, the only thing that I will not enjoy will be when the writer gets to the part where he has to talk about how these animals aren't here anymore. How none of them are here anymore. And inevitably when books like this get to that point, the writer goes, I just don't... was it a meteor? Was it real estate? Did the rents get too expensive? They had to leave? Or I don't know what it is. I mean, we had a gigantic biome of massive megafauna all throughout South America, and then humans arrived, and then within an eye blink of geological time, in almost no time at all the megafauna were gone. I just don't understand it. And then there was a gigantic and thriving biome of megafauna in Eurasia, in northern Europe and Eurasia, with species that were so magnificent, and then humans arrived, and it was like an eye blink of time and geological time, and then all of those megafauna were gone. And then, what about in North America and southern Canada? There were all these different species of elephants and giant ground sloths and giant animals of all kinds. And then modern humans arrived, and within an eye blink of geological time, all the megafauna were gone. And, I just can't understand what these things have in common. Maybe a comet? That drives me crazy. Absolutely crazy. The reason that these two species on the cover do not exist anymore is because humans eliminated them, just as humans are in 2018 eliminating an average of a species every day. I don't know how many times you need to see a biome that's been thriving for millions of years, with millions of different species and millions of ecologically balanced competition with each other, and then modern humans show up, and suddenly all those animals disappear. And you see that. You see the archaeological and the biological remains of that. You find slaughter pits that were obviously designed to kill large numbers of animals at one time. Far larger numbers of animals at one time than those roving bands of humans could possibly use. In other words, I don't know how many different times on how many different continents you need to come across examples of the fact that these animals were all killed by a genocidal species, by a species of animal that has something wrong with it, that evolved a gigantically complex brain too quickly, and therefore defectively, and likes to kill every example of every living thing that it finds. I don't know how many examples like that you need. How many charred mastodon bones do you need before you say, I think I'm just going to infer from all this that humans killed these animals. All of them. That humans killed these animals. I think that's what I'm going to infer. And I'm sure that at some point in the end of the megafauna, I'm going to get to that point. And this otherwise authoritative author is going to say, I don't know. I mean, was it Ebola? Was it Martians? I can't for the life of me think what could cause this. That always drives me nuts. But anyway, so as you can see, I am not tooting my own horn here in this video. I do nothing else but read. I'm not spending 2 hours on it making an elaborate meal for my loved ones because I don't know how to cook and nobody loves me because I smell. It's not a Tuesday night where I'm going out to play trivia or bingo or anything like that. All I do is read. That's all. And if you could say the same, you would get through these books just as fast as I do. So when I say that this is not a whole day, you can see why, right? End of the Megafauna is going to be a quick read. Then King Kong is tiny, and it was junk literature to start with. It is going to be literally a page turner. Then we have Elevation by Stephen King. It's a short story. It's not going to take long. Then we have Friday Black. It's a short story collection, not a very big book. It will probably get the most concentration from me in the course of all of these books, but still, it's not going to take long to read. Then Something Rotten, which is about roadkill. I've already read it. It's a reread, so I will there are parts of it that I'm sure went right by me, but it again won't take long to do. And the Vanity Fair Diaries, which I've already read, it's also a reread. I will read all of it, but when you come to collected diaries, you're not talking about a narrative momentum of any kind. So you can skip around if you want to. I don't think I will, because I also like watching the tone change as time goes on. If you skip around, you miss that in diary entries. But one way or another, this stack of books that I just showed you is not going to take me. It's going to take me all afternoon and early evening, which leaves me then a chunk of the evening for writing, and then at midnight I put everything away and start reading again. It won't be any of these books. These will all be done by then. So I get a lot of books done, and I will report back on the ones that I haven't read and let you know. But I also want to recommend the Vanity Fair Diaries. If that's your sort of thing, if you love the glittery world of gossip and celebrity and whatnot, and also not just gossip and celebrity, but also authors. The Vanity Fair pays good money. They still do for writing. So authors are all through these pages. If you want to relive that time and read all about it, Vanity Fair Diaries are now in paperback in your bookstore, and it's well worth the time if you're interested in that sort of thing. So there you go. That's a Tuesday Reads with a recommendation. I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.